Hi everyone, it's Miss Kern again. Okay, for this section we are going to be talking about the limiting government. Okay, so once again this is week 3 of the social studies packets that we'll be talking about. There are 5 pages that all should be titled limiting government on top. Okay, the first 2 pages are going to be information that we need to answer the remaining 3 pages. Okay, so there's going to be a total of 5 pages we will be discussing in this video. The first 2 pages you could follow along as I read out loud. The remaining 3 pages we will work together to complete. Alright, starting on the top, limiting government. Limiting government, what's the big deal? Sometimes you might hear people talking as if government is an evil monster. Are they overreacting? Are there reasons to fear government? Whose side is government on anyway? Throughout history, there has been governments that had too much power and ending up abusing that power. They limited people's freedom, mistreated people, and even committed mass murders. In some places, that still happens today. Government isn't evil. But the people who run government do need to be kept in check so they can't abuse their power. There are several ways to limit government power. Okay, so I'll read the caption, this picture right here. It says, from 1926 to 1943, Benito Mussolini ruled Italy as a dictator with total control of the government. So he was the only person in charge. All right, next section, a constitution. A constitution is a rule book for a country's government. A constitution usually explains what kind of government a country has and how that government functions. It also tells how a country's laws are made, and it explains the rights and responsibility of citizens. Most modern countries have written constitutions. Next section, a rule of law. The rule of law means laws are fair, they're enforced, and nobody is above the law. When a country has the rule of law, everyone must follow the law. The government leaders, and even the president. Citizens feel secure that the government can't do what it wants, and there are procedures in place to make sure the law is enforced. Next section, separation of power. Separation of power is dividing power among several branches of government. By dividing up the power, a country can make sure that no one person or part of government gets too much control. Separation of power works because each branch of government is able to check or limit what the other branches can do. Each branch is responsible for a different government functions. Okay, so if you notice this image right here, it says Constitution up top, it says make laws, it says carry out laws, and interpret laws. Consent of the governed. When you give your consent, you are giving permission. The consent of the governed means that the citizens of a country give their permission to be governed by the country's government, and they do this by voting. Citizens have the right to vote, and they can use their vote to change the government. By voting, citizens can even change the Constitution. Final section of this page, rights of the minority. In a system where citizens are the government because leaders are elected by voting, limiting government also means limiting the power of the majority. In voting, the majority rules. It would be possible for the majority to treat a minority group unfairly. Protecting the rights of the minority means protecting the rights of small and unpopular groups, regardless of what the majority believes. Everyone must be treated fairly. Okay, I'm going to go on to the next page. Alberto Fujimori, power in Peru. New president, big ideas. In 1990, a man came to power in Peru who would do things that would shock the world. Peru is the largest country in South America. Like the United States, Peru has a constitution that creates a government with a president, a Congress, and a judicial system. But in the 1990s, something happened in Peru that has never happened in America. Next paragraph. Alberto Fujimori was born in Peru after his parents immigrated from Japan. When Peruvians elected him to be their president in 1990, he was very popular. Peru had huge financial problems, and Fujimori had ideas for making Peru more prosperous. He also had ideas for dealing with a group of terrorists that had been causing problems in the country. But Peru's Congress was filled with lawmakers who opposed Fujimori, and they refused to pass any of his ideas into law. Next section. Fujimori takes control. On the night of April 5th, 1992, Fujimori took matters into his own hands. He went on television and told Peruvians he was temporarily dissolving Congress and that he would reorganize the judicial branch. There was only one problem. Peru's constitution did not give Fujimori the power as president to do these things. But Fujimori had a solution for that. He used military tactics and tear gas to keep Congress from meeting. He arrested people who disagreed with him, and he also arrested popular journalists and businessmen. Just to be safe, he even arrested the man who had been president before him. And then Fujimori set his sights on Peru's constitution. He issued a decree or presidential order saying the constitution could be ignored. This decree also got rid of Congress and gave the president the power to make all the laws. Fujimori then fired almost half of Peru's 23 Supreme Court justices, as well as many other judges around Peru who believed his actions were unconstitutional. Next section. The autocrat falls. Having secured control of Peru's government, Fujimori now had no trouble carrying out his ideas. He solved Peru's financial crisis, and he successfully dealt with the terrorists that had taken control of several parts of the country. These and other actions made him popular. But that wasn't all Fujimori did. With no independent judicial system, thousands of suspected terrorists were killed without even having a trial. On top of that, scandal broke when one of Fujimori's government officials was caught smuggling drugs, stealing government money, interfering with elections, and selling weapons to terrorists in other countries. Fujimori went to Japan to hide from the scandal. The scandal allowed Fujimori's opposition to gain control, and the government in Peru was restored. Later, Fujimori was sentenced to 6 years in prison for abusing his power and 25 years of human rights abuses in Peru. Okay, we are going to move on to the next page. Okay, so section A up top. It says, mark it up. Go back into Alberto Fujimori's Power of Peru and complete the following steps. Circle 4 things that should have kept Fujimori's power in check. Okay, so you're going to go back in the article and circle 4 things that should have kept his power in check. And you could also replay as I was reading it out loud to listen and circle as you hear me read the article again. 4 things that should have kept him in power in check. Next, number 2 says underline the actions Fujimori took to get rid of those checks. So once again, you're going to go back and you're going to listen to me read it out loud. Then you are going to underline what he did to get rid of the checks that were already in place. Number 3, draw a rectangle around the bad ideas that happened after Fujimori took complete control. Okay, so you're going to go back, and then you're going to rectangle around all the bad things that happened once he dissolved the government. Section B says sequence. Number the following events from 1 to 8 in order as if they have happened. Okay. I'm going to read all of the options. Fujimori successfully solves the economic problem and terrorist troubles in Peru. Fujimori tries to solve the economic crisis but runs into too many obstacles. Fujimori is sentenced to a total of 31 years in prison. Fujimori dissolves Congress and says the Constitution can be ignored. President Fujimori flees to Japan. Fujimori is elected president of Peru. Fujimori takes tanks and tear gas to stop Congress from meeting. And then letter H, scandals break out over illegal activity in Fujimori's government. Okay, so I'm going to hold up the correct order for you. Remember, he was elected president first. Okay, he tries to solve the problems next. He realizes he does not get anywhere, so then he dissolves Congress. Number 4, he uses tanks and tear gas to stop Congress from meeting. Number 5, he solves all the problems. Number 6, scandal breaks out over his activities within his government. Number 7 is he leaves to Japan. And then finally, he is sentenced to jail for what he has done. Alright, number C, pros and cons. What are the benefits of giving one leader total control? What are the drawbacks? Brainstorm 4 ideas for each and fill in the organizers below. You don't have to repeat what's in the reading. It's okay for your own ideas. So you think, what are some benefits to having one leader in control? Some things I thought about, it's easier to make changes. There could be less disagreement in the government. Citizens would know what to expect because of less change. And it's easier to try new ideas, okay, without having opposition. So there's many correct answers. These were the ones I came up with. Alright, the drawbacks. Some of the ideas I came up with is there's no way to control the leader. It's easy for leaders to abuse power. It could be hard to change bad ideas that aren't working. And citizens would not have a say in their own government. There was only one person in charge. So once again, you could copy these ideas. But there are many other reasons you could come up with yourself. Alright, next page. Okay, it should look like this. Alright, number D says no limits. Read each event which limit on government failed. Write in the line above the event. Okay, so number 1 says our options are Constitution, rule of law, separation of power, consent of the governed, or rights of the majority. So number 1 says Fujimori's government interfered with elections. Okay, that failed consent of the governed. Number 2, Fujimori's government ignored the rights of suspected terrorists. Failed the rights of the minority. Number 3, Fujimori dissolved Peru's Congress. That failed separation of power. Number 4, Fujimori ordered the Constitution to be ignored. That failed the Constitution. And then finally, number 5, Fujimori did what he wanted regardless of the law. That failed rule of the law. So I will hold those up for you to copy. Alright, number E says review. Solve the clues to complete the crossword puzzle. Use the first page of the reading for help. So we're going to start with across. 3 across says minority rights are needed in order to treat everyone equal. That answer is fairly. Number 4 across, the people who run government must be kept in check. Is that answer? Number 5 means giving permission. That is consent. Consent means you're giving permission. Number 6, how citizens give their consent to the government. Number 6, the answer is voting. That's how you give consent. Number 8, the right of the minority limit of power of the group. That is the majority. Alright, one down. When there's rule of law, this is who the laws apply to. Number 1, rule of laws mean laws apply to everyone. So the answer is everyone. Number 2, when there's rule of law, there are procedures that make the laws. 2 down is enforced. Number 3, what people fear will be limited if the government has too much power. 3 down is freedom. Number 5, with separation of power, no branch has too much of this, and that is control. Number 7, the Constitution tells how these are made, and that is laws. So I will hold this up for you so you have a chance to copy. Okay, for the next page, letter E, limits to the government. For each fictional country, mark which limit the country does not have. Okay, so we're going to mark of all of the Constitution, rule of law, minority rights, consent of the governed, separation of power, which ones they are missing based off of the passages. So number 1, in Antietam, citizens are looking forward to the upcoming election. There's nothing written down, but traditionally everyone has the right to vote. They will be electing a new president and leadership council, as they've always done every 3 years. People are hoping the new leaders will do something about the broken judicial system because laws are not being enforced. Many citizens don't like that some candidates are from the unpopular pro-noise group, but ATM has a strong tradition of respecting everyone's rights. Okay, so what they are missing is the Constitution because they don't write anything down, and then the rules of law where everyone has to follow. So you're going to mark off those two. Number 2. Portova has a document of power, DOP, that tells how the government works. The DOP splits power among Queen, the High Council, and the 30 justice officers. It requires all government officials to follow the law. The Queen comes from the royal family, members of High Council are chosen by drawing straws, and the justice officers are chosen by lottery. The High Council has the power to dethrone the Queen, and the justice officers can remove members of the High Council. The DOP says justice officers may decide whose rights will be respected. Okay, so they are missing the minority rights because they're choosing whose rights are respected, and consent of the governed. They do not vote on the people. Alright, number F and number G, these are going to change depending on what you write, so you are going to try to fill this out yourself. I will explain how to do it. What do you think? Fill in the boxes below. Take an opportunity to express yourself. So for the box all the way to the left, you are going to number those from 1 to 5. Everyone's answers are going to be different. Okay, which one do you think is the most important, and which one do you think is the least important? Okay, after you number them, you are going to write which one you ranked number 1 in the middle box. Okay, you're going to write number 1 here, and then you're going to write which it is, and then why you chose the box all the way to right, which one you ranked number 5, and why you chose number 5. Once again, there's no right or wrong answer. You are going to choose what you think. And then letter G, the guessing game. Choose one limit of power, so you're going to choose between Constitution, rule of law, minority rights, consent of the governed, and separation of power. Okay, and write your own description of a fictional country that does not have that limit. Okay, so you're going to come up with a country name. Use these examples to help you. You're going to write a country name, what they're missing of here, and then you're going to write a description. Okay, so use these as a guide to help you. Okay, once again, everyone's answer is going to be different for those final 2 sections. Okay, that is completion of this section. If you have any questions or need any more support, definitely reach out. Thank you.